Hi everyone, I'm Liz Jarvis and I'm very excited to be on Prosper's show today. I'm going to be talking all about the financial rebellion. It's the rebellion you can have to claim back your power from the ATO and the status quo. You can understand your financial statements and you can use them to improve your business and become more profitable. That's what my passion is about. I don't want any business to fail. My book talks about it's like Robin Hood, right? We're stealing your power back for you. We're going to use our arrows of courage and curiosity and contemplation. We're going to look at reframing your ideas through the bow that you have, and you will be mounted on your horse. Your horse is your accounting system, and that's the way I pulled everything together to make accounting interesting for you. Because you can understand your financial statements. Every business owner can understand their own. I'm so excited to be here with Prosper. Thank you for watching us.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, where we have a guest who's far from your typical number crunching accountant. I want you to imagine somebody who can not only help you navigate the financial maze of your business, but also has represented Australia at the 2023 Gymnaestrada in Amsterdam, and she was performing gymnastics at the ripe age of 57. Now, Liz, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for having me, Prosper. I'm really excited to be speaking to you.
Well, I'm a little bit pissed off, Liz. You know, you could have invited me to be your biggest cheerleader in Amsterdam. We could have had a lot of fun watching you do the gymnastics, representing Australia there.
I know it's a pretty amazing thing for a woman of my size and age to be doing. I only started gymnastics about a year before that. But there's like 19,000 gymnasts go to this Gymnaestrada, and it's gymnastics for all. So all people can be involved, and I did do some training. I'm more of a base than a top, but I loved every minute of it, and I'm sorry you weren't packed in my suitcase, Prosper.
Absolutely. Well, at least I've got front row seats to actually see you become a financial rebel today as we unveil, first of all, your new book and everything else that you are doing out there to help people who are flying blind financially. Now, Liz, just before we jump into this, I mean, obviously, what we're going to be talking about is of a financial sort of flavor. Maybe you've got a bit of a disclaimer that you want to just throw in the mix before we actually get excited about what's in store for us today.
Yes, we always have to be very careful on the financial side of things, not to take general things too literally around our own. So these are yuck and boring, but there's a legal requirement for me to disclaim that everything you hear from me today is general in nature, and you should always seek financial and business advice that's tailored to you and your transactions at the time. It's very important. Everything we'll talk about today is very general. So check it out with your own professional if you're going to make a change as a result of something I've said today.
Fantastic, and thank you so much for that. Now that we've got all the legalese out of the way, I'm excited for this call today. I mean, this has been a long time in the making. I mean, while, each and every one of us is trying to create a business that's profitable and enjoyable, way too many businesses are flying blind financially, and it's causing them to lose money and flounder and eventually fail. And there's a statistic that says not a lot of businesses go past the 3-year mark. So I've brought in Liz today, who's going to be talking about financial rebellion and hopefully helping you go from powerless to flexing your financial power in your business. And yes, you heard that right. Liz Jarvis is here with us, a chartered accountant with over 35 years of experience in tax accounting and small business, and she is the author of the book of Financial Rebellion. And she's not just passionate about numbers, she's also on a mission to empower small and medium businesses to truly understand the stories they're businesses' numbers are telling. It is a language anyway, and it's all about the numbers and the story that they tell. Right now, Liz, as you can notice, I'm mincing my words already because I'm a little bit starstruck from the last time I saw you to who you've become right now. Tell us a little bit about your journey so far and what it is that you're doing to help these business owners that are flying blindly.
Well, Prosper, you and I met many years ago, probably around 2016, when I was embarking a bit more on the entrepreneurial side of my accounting business, because I'd met a lot of entrepreneurs in a coaching program that I was in, and I was shocked by how much anxiety and fear they had around their numbers and how poorly they were being supported by their professionals in terms of actually being walked through the information. And what's worse is it's got a lot worse since then. Post-COVID, everything else, there seems to be less and less personal contact. But business owners really are, they're being neglected because they're not being helped to understand that they can indeed understand their numbers. So coaches and accountants and our own inner person tells us that we can't understand, when in fact, I've proven over and over again that every business owner can understand their own numbers, and quite quickly and easily will they notice things that are not right in their numbers. And that's why it's so important to get into your numbers now and start taking a look at them and getting a better and better understanding.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being that, midpoint that a lot of people, really, really need. Because like you say, a lot of the other professionals that are handling people's books are just there for the compliance side of things and just obviously making sure that everything is being done properly, but they're not sending the elevator down with insights, information, and everything else that is needed for a business to actually, sort of go to profitability or just the actual understanding of things of that nature. Why do you think that is, Liz?
Well, in my book, in my wonderful Financial Rebellion book, I explain quite a lot of the background of why this has happened. You see, it's not intentional. The accountants and the bookkeepers, they don't mean to neglect the business owner's needs, but it's just something that's happened over time. We've got really, really efficient at processing financial information, but mostly the industry has lost sight of the fact that accounting was designed for the business owner. It was always meant to give us a nice summary so that we understand what's going on in the complexity of our business. But we're not encouraged to read it or look at it. There's lots of social media hype around lots of things like know your numbers, what's your turnover, what's your ROI on this, that, and the other thing. But for most business owners, that just turns them cold. It really brings a level of fear straight to the surface. And that fear, which we call anxiety, actually freezes the brain and stops them from processing and understanding the information. So that's why often when you look at your information, you think you can't understand it because your brain's like, oh, I'm scared of this. Oh, this is not for me. Let me out of here. But I've shown over and over again that if you let your curiosity come in and you understand that that information tells the story of your business, the anxiety dissolves and the curiosity kicks in, and every business owner can understand what's in front of them. Then the most important thing is that we start to get it accurate, because my experience is most of the time, if the business owner hasn't looked at it, it's not accurate. The well-intended bookkeepers, etc., are making decisions on your behalf, and so is AI for that matter. So you need to look at it so you can see if anything's been incorrectly recorded.
Absolutely. Now, Liz, you understand this. I mean, most of the stuff or the information is apparently stored in the cloud. Okay. And me being somebody from Melbourne, I'm just looking outside. It's a bit overcast. I can't even picture which cloud has got all my data right now. So it becomes so very difficult for people to even know where to start. But you've had an impressive sort of 35-year career in tax accounting, with small business and things of that nature. What are some of the things that people should look out for, especially when they're dealing with a professional, that they can actually start taking charge of the information that is presented to them?
Well, the most important document in the information is called your balance sheet. And the reason I'm raising this is because that's where, as I was trained as an auditor in the early days, we always started with the balance sheet. If the balance sheet is not correct, then the profit and loss won't be correct. And I realized as I was writing my book and putting together one of my reframes, which is your balance sheet is your secret weapon. Even if you're doing your own bookkeeping, even check the balance sheet side of the whatever program you're using. Most people use Xero these days, but do have a look at the balance sheet, because quite often the balance sheet will reveal to you that you might be doing some things incorrectly. This happens when we just launch into our software, we follow all that content media that tells us it's easy and you can do it, and we start doing our invoices, and then the bank feed's got the money coming in. Sometimes those things aren't being matched up, and the system will show that you're owed money when you're not owed money, or that you owe money when you don't owe money. So I'd encourage you to dissolve your curiosity. If you do have hands-on access to your own software, take a look at the balance sheet. Now, if things pop up that you don't understand, I can give you a free 15-minute call. You can ring me and we can chat about it, but that's where I'd like you to start, with the curiosity. A safer, cleaner place to start would be the set of financials that was last provided to you as part of getting your tax done. That set of financials has been checked and curated by your tax agent, but I still encourage you to take a look at it, take a look at the balance sheet in there, take a look at the profit and loss statement that tells the story of your business over that year, and ask yourself whether it feels right, whether the information appears to be complete. Because quite often, the biggest mistake I see is that a lot of things can get treated as personal when it was not your intention for them to be treated as personal. So sometimes overseas trips, sometimes various travel, just make sure that they have recorded things the way you intended them to be recorded.
Absolutely. And thank you
I
so
think
much for that.
I've opened a can of worms there, haven't I, Prosper?
Oh, absolutely, because so many things are just presented. I could speak from my own experience. The bass is just done from behind the scenes, and then they say, hey, quickly sign this just to sign it off, and then we'll put it through, and I will be like, yeah, sure, why not? If they've done it, it must be all right. And then comes the tech stuff or whatever it is, and then maybe we're aligning on a few things, and then looking at the budgets and what certain things mean in reflection to the business. But there's that level of ownership, which maybe you can encourage the business owner, because sometimes when somebody takes that load off of you, you're like, yeah, I don't need to worry about it, I don't need to have a look at it. What sort of ownership then should the business owner also have on their part to make sure that they want to understand what's actually happening, instead of just signing it off and putting it away with the rest?
Yeah, the signing it off thing is interesting. So when I was in a tax practice, I felt that the most important part of my role was at the point in time when they were signing off their tax returns, and I would walk them through their profit and loss, their balance sheet, and their tax returns. So some of my clients had multiple, I think up to 37 trusts in one group was the most I'd ever done. But even then, I felt it was important to have that business owner well aware of how those things consolidated together. So we've had that personal, holistic approach replaced now by the good old tick box, I've signed this. The software even boasts that your clients will sign their financials within 5 minutes. Isn't that fantastic? I don't think that's fantastic. That means that you haven't looked at it. That means that all of the work that's been done to produce those financial statements for you, the business owner, has mostly gone to waste, because you are the most important user of the financial statements. We don't do them for the ATO. But in Australia, we've lost sight of that. In Australia, our poor tax agents and BAS agents are being bombarded by the ATO and its requirements, and so many threats. Even now, they're supposed to dob each other in. I think they shelved that for another year. But because the accountants and the bookkeepers are under the pump to not take risks with the ATO, then some of the important information is being left out. Now, just because an expense is not deductible for tax doesn't mean it's not an expense of your business. So if you're doing lots of things that they consider not to be deductible, that I believe they should still be in the story of your business. It's still part of whether or not you're making a profit. So if you're wining and dining people and that's not a tax deduction and maybe it's a fringe benefit, we can't ignore that piece of information. Sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a passion point here, Prosper. Bring me back into line for your general readership.
Well, for all that, I mean, obviously, with this story, with this sort of topic, we can go just about anywhere and don't feel like we need to reel it in, because so much. I mean, people would rather talk, and I'm gonna say this with utmost love and respect. People would rather talk about sex than talk about their finances, even when it's at a personal or at a business sort of level, And there's so many things, and finances affect so many facets of our businesses. That is why so many people, like I said, don't go past the 3 year mark. And obviously the passion that you exude is something that a lot of people miss out on, because like you said, all the other people have just been relegated to paper pushers that are being, forced to just comply by the ATO. But you've built this reputation as a warm, approachable business ally. You know what I mean? First of all, how does this help a business person to have somebody like you on the side who's got this much passion without wanting to just, help the ATO, reach a quota?
Yeah, so I no longer act as a tax agent or a BAS agent. So my services are in addition to those that you have from other professionals. Our industry got siloed into so many little pieces. In fact, it's so confusing as to what I'm not allowed to give advice, because that's financial planning's role. Where you would have chatted with your accountant and your bank manager last century, it's not that long ago, you would have been able to have a good, open and complex chat about how your life fits with your business and how your borrowings fit with your life. Lots of other things. That scenario isn't really available to you from the average accountant that you work with. So my services are on top of that, whether it's just a 1 hour power hour of getting right into the nitty-gritty of what you're doing. Or sometimes I work with businesses over a longer period because they've managed to get themselves into a mess. Now, we can get into a mess, particularly when we abdicate the accounting. So yes, we need to delegate what we're not good at, but anytime we delegate something, we really should be giving instruction to the person we're delegating to as to how we want it done. And that's a lot of the time what's missing with accounting. So I've seen a number of occasions where business owners thought all was in hand and being looked after by, their accountants that they paid plenty of money to, only to discover that accountant was overwhelmed or negligent or anything else, and find themselves in a sticky situation where they're in trouble with the ATO, where they're being penalised for not paying super, where they've missed things. The worst cases involve fraud. There are fraudulent people within businesses and even some professionals. I guess you don't know what's going on. You don't know what you might have missed unless you look at those financials. And because they're the story of your business, you can understand them. So I talk a little bit about functional literacy. It's Prosper, this stuff is really hard to market because nobody wants to look at it. But, everyone can achieve a functional literacy because, and I talk, I talk about this with passion because of my kids' literacy issues. You just need enough literacy to get by. And it's the same with financial literacy. But you do have the power to see the stuff differently. And the reason I've got this horse on the front of the book is because the book's sort of like about Robin Hood, that idea that we steal. I want to steal your power back from the ATO and the status quo and get it back in your hands. So you've got the power to actually look at your stuff and make well-informed decisions because you do have enough literacy because it's your story. Now, I can read everybody's financials. I can understand all sorts of stuff. But for you, financial rebellion is about just getting enough power to read your own stuff and to then delegate effectively to the people around you and use the information to make better decisions. What do you reckon about that, Prosper?
I like that because I like the words you're using, abdicate and also stealing back your power, because the power is yours in the very first place. You're the one that's waking up every single day, doing that work, which basically then produces that story that is hiring these people in order for them to then report back at you. So definitely you should have a say in everything that happens. And if you are paying attention to those numbers, one day you would have a good story to tell. Now, with all that being said, now, Liz, first of all, a lot of businesses, when they start their relationship with their accountant, they bring in that proverbial box of receipts, and then they just go and leave it, and they never look back from that part because now they're just communicating from on the phone or email and things like that, which results in that abdication of responsibility when it comes to their financials. Now, what are these steps that somebody can actually start doing starting today that they can reclaim that power back to themselves, like you were mentioning? Because at least if somebody knows where to start, it makes it easy for them to now, do something. Maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's just to look at a certain part of their business and have some sort of a symptom that will then say, yep, this means that.
Prosper, it depends very much on the size of the business as to what the first steps would be, because it's important to remember that every business is unique. So for each of you listening, watching, remember that your business is unique and you understand your business better than anyone else. So I want you to just start believing in your capacity to understand the financials. And then step one, even if it's a really big business, would be to get hold of a profit and loss statement and ideally a balance sheet with that. And that might be the one that your accountant's most recently prepared for you. And just take a deep breath and believe in your ability to understand it and start to have a look at it. So the average profit and loss starts with income. It might be called revenue. It might be called sales. It could have all sorts of labeling. That's the beginning of it. Then we might have some cost of sales, which are the costs related to those sales. If you like, the direct costs. There's a lot of jargon that can get confused, but remember, it's just your story. So there's your sales, there's the things that you spent money directly on, the things that you sold people if you're that kind of business, and then there's all of your expenses down below. I'd encourage you, when you look at those expenses, to think about how they've been worded and whether those words are meaningful to you or whether you would like more detail perhaps. So something that comes to mind, topical on this show, is marketing. Wouldn't your financial statements be more useful to you if your marketing was divided into the various areas where you spent money? And wouldn't you then perhaps pay more attention to the financials because you could see at a glance month by month how much you spent, say, on Facebook ads, on your marketing guru, on various other people. But when it's in a big fat lump in the P&L, you kind of look at it and go, that's a lot of money. I wonder where that went. You can ask your bookkeeper, or if you're doing your things yourself, you can get more detail in that chart of accounts. And I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to adjust the words. There is an exercise in my book where I suggest that you even look at, if you've got Xero or something and you can log in, even look at comparing that with the financial statements your accountant gives you. I heard of one example quite recently where a whole lot of attention had been paid to the level of detail that the client wanted. And the accountant, obviously not a very good one, actually journaled all of the detail out to get it back into a single line for them. And this is what I think, it's a really good example of the accountants, some accountants, not understanding why you want detail. So to recap that little suggestion, get hold of your profit and loss and your balance sheet. Remember that it's just your information and have a good look at it. And then advancing from there, think about how that story could be better told and think about whether it's right or not. So if you notice things that are not right or don't seem right, if you're looking at it, if say you're in Xero and you're looking at it on the screen, you can actually click that number and dive into the detail behind it. But if you're just looking at financials that the accountants have prepared and you don't have access to the system, ask the question if you notice anything that's not right. Don't be afraid of the fact that they charge by the 6-minute interval. You need to ask. If something's wrong, you need to ask.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us on that deep dive, because if you're looking at your profit and loss statement, as you say, if the revenue ticks, okay, that's how much money you made, how much it costed you to run the actual business, in terms of cost of goods sold and the actual expenses that went in. And if you can see what it actually took in order for you to make that revenue in terms of, the line and marketing, that will be absolutely wonderful. Because yes, as you say, so many people just lump it all together and then they look at, wait a minute, we spent this much and the revenue does not correlate to that. So definitely maybe the marketing is not working or things like that, but it's just a lack of understanding of those numbers that people are having. Now with your,
and I encourage Prosper taking, I encourage you to almost ignore the numbers to some extent. It sounds crazy, but it's the way that I get people to understand. Just first look at the words. The words are telling the story, and then just kind of settle into the fact that you're looking at a set of financial statements and realize that you are understanding because it is telling that story. And then open your mind to actually looking at the numbers with a little bit more critiquing, really. I know I'm opening a can of worms. I know that mostly people would rather not look at it, but the reason I'm so passionate about it is those businesses that fail, is those mums that are slogging it out, trying to make a business that makes some money to bring into the family when sometimes it may not be doing that at all. So we need to learn early how profitable our business is and how we can make it more profitable so that it serves us. My passion with the clients I work with is, what do you want out of this business? And is it serving you? And if it's not serving you, what can we do to make sure that it does serve you so that you don't flog it, you don't work your guts out for something that isn't serving you and your family.
I like that. And the fact that you say you need to understand the words, you need to really, because words matter. You know what I mean? The way something is put across to you now sort of gives you the sort of emotional response, which then gives you the action that you need to act. Now, speaking of words and, deriving meaning from them, right? It looks like if you are becoming a financial rebellion, you're literally helping yourself be, do, and have a business that's profitable and enjoyable, right?
That's right.
I
That's
like that.
exactly right. That's
Because so many people have not taken it upon themselves to fight for their own existence, and I think this book now becomes the shield that they are going to use in the battle towards their own financial success. Now maybe you can let us know, how can people get a hold of this copy?
yes. So my book is available on Amazon. Just search Financial Rebellion, depending on what country you're in. The links are a little bit different, but certainly if you Google Financial Rebellion, you'll find potentially my website and links to Amazon. So that's how you can get your book. And it's available on both soft copy like this and hard copy like this. It's also available as an ebook. But the next thing we're going to be doing is I'm creating an app that will allow us to have a community of financial rebels who are checking out their finances and building that power. Because eventually that power allows you to grow your profit, save taxes, and build financial freedom. And so we'll have a community where I'll be available on Tuesdays at 2 in the community to answer any questions while we all jump into our finances at once, and we allow some time to really be mindfully looking at what our numbers are telling us. I really see it as your business talking to you. And if you don't listen to your business, then it can't tell you what's going on. So there's a lot going on in your business, but it can tell you a little bit about what might be going wrong, because a lot of this is about what are we missing? What have we forgotten about of our subscriptions? We've got a bunch that we don't need anymore. The business wants to talk to you and help you to be a more successful business owner. It's success by your own definition. Not everyone's going to get millions in turnover, right?
Absolutely, and I quite like that. So I'm supposing this Financial Rebellion book is like that little check engine light. When you're driving, it now becomes hey, this is something that you need to look at, because so many of us, like you said, we're just flying blind. Yes, the passion starts in, we want to just get started in business, but then the real stuff comes behind. Are you profitable? And like you say, can you and should you stick in business? And if you can't tell those stories, then obviously you won't be able to defend yourself or the cause that you're working towards. I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes below. Now, you were now starting to talk about this community because so many people are afraid to go at it by themselves, or approach their financial people. But I'm thinking, if they're going to be working with people who are their own peers, it actually makes a lot of sense, because if you want to go far, you go alone. But if you want to go further, you go together. Tell us a little bit about this community. I mean, obviously, you've already spilled the beans, so we can't take that back in the bag, can we?
No, the app should be available soon. The community is, a dream of mine. My dream is to help millions. So we've got to do that. We've got to grow that movement together. So a movement to use our financial information to improve our lives and our businesses. Because we've mostly talked about just getting used to it, just having a look at the story. But once you're comfortable with the story, budgeting becomes something that's manageable. Whether you call it budgeting or forecasting or whatever, you take that story and you start to project the future. So mostly we get from our accountants the past. We're mostly recording the past, but we can start to look at the future. There is so much there in the detail. A lot of the devil's in the detail, but a lot of the joy is in the detail. So I'm bold enough to want accounting to be an enjoyable thing for business owners. because there is joy when you understand the business, understand how it speaks to you, understand what's happening, and start to project a successful future for yourself. And the community will then give us that opportunity to meet with other business owners, hopefully without too many keyboard warriors, where we'll try to gate the community to keep that out. But a safe space to talk about financial information, your own financial information. It's, well, everyone talks about sex these days quite comfortably, but your financial information, that's something no one wants to talk about, which is, incidentally, is part of why it's difficult to grow a business like mine. Because if I've rescued someone from a disaster, they don't want to tell anybody about the disaster, right? But if we bring a community together, there'll be things you won't want to express in the community, and we can step out for, a separate paid call. But that's my dream, is to build this community where lots of people can get enough information to get back on track and to pick up their bows and arrows and ride their horse. This horse represents your accounting system. It is strong and bold. It can do a lot for you. So that's what we'll be growing inside the community, growing your horse and your ability to ride your horse and your ability to understand that information and get businesses that, serve you perfectly.
Absolutely, and that's definitely the horse I'm going to be backing on on the race that stops the nation. Definitely, because
How cool would that be if we had a Melbourne Cup horse named Financial Rebellion? That would be awesome.
absolutely. Now, obviously, you did mention that a lot of people are a little bit timid or shy, or don't even want to talk about their, sort of like mess to success sort of messages that they might have, because they don't want to be embarrassed for having failed, so to speak, with their finances. Maybe you can share with us a story of a client who maybe was initially intimidated about their finances, but they actually then experienced a breakthrough after working with you.
Yeah, I think I like what you said there, that phrase, from mess to success. I'd never thought of that. That could be a marketing message for me. A few different clients come to mind, and they're all different sizes, right? But one client I had was so anxious around these things and her husband had had a business for a few years, she'd had a business for a few years, and then for some reason her accountant sacked her, which does happen. Anyway, she came to me through a referral from another friend. She literally felt like in behind zero was the ATO, and it was there to jump on her at any moment for doing the wrong thing. And I was able to explain to her that no, the ATO is not behind your zero. They can't actually see into it unless you have an audit. And I've worked with her for a number of years now, just small amounts over the years. But now she can confidently ring the ATO about some of the complex matters in her business. It's a very interesting business, so it has little nuances, and she will confidently ring the ATO about those. So she's gone from completely fearful to managing all of her own books and things. She actually lodges her own company tax returns. She doesn't use a tax agent anymore. That's not the norm for me. Mostly people need their own tax agent and BAS agents, especially as they grow bigger, but her business is just small now. And so she has that confidence. She's not frightened of it anymore. She has a rhythm and routine about when she does her things. So she's a great example of a very small business. And then in a very large business, a big one I rescued, I don't do that anymore, rescued a big local food manufacturer and got them on track. Another one, just helping them recognize that things were behind, that they need more internal accounting roles. So the empowerment for people is different for every person. And sometimes on just one of my free 15-minute calls, I can give a huge amount of empowerment to someone to just get them going. and overcome something that they might have been procrastinating about for a long time. Another thing is, if you have fallen behind, it's very important to do something about it. A lot of tax agents won't want people whose returns are behind because it messes with their statistics, their KPIs. If you are behind, I start with a quick phone call to me and I can give you some pointers on getting on top. Because at the end of the day, no matter who your accountant or anything is, you are responsible for getting all of your things lodged. But I believe that the information you compile is even more important than getting the lodgements done.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited for this business owner who was very scared of, even opening their own, accounting tool to now actually calling the ATO to verify a few certain things and things of that nature. And it's such a remarkable sort of transformation, because once
Yes.
you start taking control of certain things, you make informed decisions, because information changes situations. Just like you now have a lot
Yeah.
more information when it comes to gymnastics and things of that nature. Somebody would probably be like, oh, with my age, with who I am, I don't think I'll be able to tackle any of this. Maybe tell us, how has your experience in the field of gymnastics actually influenced your approach to business and life now?
Yeah, so joining gymnastics was I guess, a family decision. My youngest son was an awesome gymnastic. Well, was actually Australian champion tumbler at one point. And as I mentioned before, it was the literacy issue that suddenly dawned on me that business owners need just enough literacy to progress. But the other thing that gymnastics has taught me is there is a movement in gymnastics, particularly in Europe, called Gymnastics for All. And it's about every person, every body. Movement is important, and everyone can be involved in a team display. So the Gymnaestrada is around team display gymnasts. And so in our team, we had people aged, I think, from 10 to 90, and we all performed together. We were from 2 different locations, so we trained in different places, but we brought together this beautiful routine, they call them, that went for about 14 minutes. And us adults, us older ones, were in the very last part. And we had fun pretending to be tourists with crocodiles and stuff like that. But the whole thing, the way that it all brings together, is really fascinating. And I think business is the same. There's lots of little tiny moving parts. There's lots of people doing their piece. But the story that gets built, in gymnastics, it's the choreography. And Sarah, our amazing coach, is an amazing choreographer who could build this choreography with all sorts of people with different skill levels and all ages, and produce a beautiful story. And I think I only made this connection talking to you, Prosper. It is the same in business. We're building a beautiful story. We've got many, many moving parts, but to appreciate the whole story and to see if the story's on track, we need to look at our financial statements on a regular basis, hang out with them and learn what's going on behind the scenes so we can improve our systems and processes, and we can improve our profits. Doesn't matter how big your business is, if you're a tradie or a musician, all the way through to multi-million dollars businesses, the business owner needs to be there with the numbers, listening to the story and directing that story the way it needs to go.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us on that journey, because I could really sense the passion in what you're doing and what this actually means for you. For the little that I know about gymnastics, it's about precision, it's about choreography, like you say, it's about timing. Also, it's a performance in and of itself, and it's connecting you with the person you're working with, connecting you with the crowd, connecting you with maybe the audience, and connecting you with the actual being present. Because if you, like you say, are maybe a base and somebody is on top of you, you don't need your mind elsewhere. You need to be present in that particular situation to make sure that you're executing and that person is safe and is also not going to be injured in a way because maybe your mind is thinking, oh, wait a minute, what's for dinner tonight? And you don't want to be that person that is actually doing that. And would you say that's why your clients describe you as just more than an accountant to them? They see you as a mentor, as a guide, as somebody who really holds their hand in all this. Because from what you're saying, so many people are just left to wander on their own and they just reeled in to sign a document at the end of 90 days. And then pretty much after that, yeah, that's it. And things of that nature. Uh, Why are you different to everybody else who's just seemingly pushing paper?
Yeah, and hats off to all the ones that are pushing paper. Like their role is so important. But I saw a gap. Uh, I was very upset with what I was seeing and how many businesses fail, how many business owners don't realize how badly their business is going. And you're right, my clients do like to hang out with me, which is why we need a community, because I can't do it one-to-one for every client in Australia. But often we start with a package of sessions, and a lot of them don't want to leave me. They still see me every month because the insights I bring by looking at their numbers with them, it helps them change direction and keep building their profitability. The funniest thing about it is when I start working with someone in one of my packages, they always say, I'm so excited to get started on this numbers stuff. And I'm like, no one else, no other accountant anywhere, I don't think, gets an opening line like, I'm so excited to be working with you. So there must be something magical and special about what I do. But, it's all about you, the business owner, when I'm working with you. It's all about you and the whole part of your life. So we talk about all sorts of things, whatever comes up, and the business intersects with everything that's happening in their lives. So thank you for asking.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to see what this community is going to be a part of. And this time around, please send me an invitation. I don't want to read about you in the news that you've been overseas with gymnastics and I had no part of it. So maybe at least with this community, I can log in somehow and be a part of the journey of what it is that you are doing. But obviously, there could be some last words you would want to just impart our audience, especially those that are looking at their books and would rather go and eat ice cream. What would you say to people like that?
I would say you have financial power. You have a knowing within you about what those financials mean. And my work, especially when we do the community, it's not about teaching you anything. It's about drawing out your knowing. You will find what the story and the numbers mean for you. So you do have financial power, or you can steal your financial power back from the status quo and the ATO, and then take the journey to keep flexing that financial power. By the more you have a look at your financials, the more you pay attention, the more your financial power will grow. Just like going to the gym, we keep growing it. And I have this kind of image that my book coach taught me to do: financial rebellion. We are represented by the flex and the arrow in a lot of things that I do. So know that you have financial power and keep flexing that power right into battle to improve your business, to make sure you're not paying any more tax than you have to, and to make sure your systems are serving you and you're not wasting any time and money anywhere in that business that you could be keeping for yourself. I think those are my parting words, Prosper.
Fantastic. Well, I can't thank you enough for such a beautiful sentiment because, Liz, I obviously believe you're giving people back to themselves. All right. Because, when
Yes.
people start a business, the first 3 years are just all over the place. And when you now just really get started and wanting to be doing have maybe a business that's profitable and enjoyable, this is where the serious work starts. And with that comes a lot of responsibilities. Maybe you've got team members, maybe you now have more customers and more suppliers you need to deal with. The last thing you need is a partner who is helping you grow in the name of your accountant, not even paying particular attention to the story that you are telling. And that sort of disheartens a lot of people. And I'm thinking with the financial rebellion, you're literally handing them back to themselves so that they can actually progress and grow in their own right. So I can't thank you for the amount of work that, first of all, you have put in to get this book out there. And second of all, the work that you're going to be doing with the community of the people that are going to be working together in order to actually become profitable themselves.
Thank you very much, Prosper.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you for the time we've spent on the call today. I mean, it's been an inspiring journey. And I was actually looking to see if there's a gymnastic class that takes in very, very lazy people and very, like myself, just in case I could, be a part of a team or something like that. I
I'm
mean,
sure down there in Melbourne there would be some adult gymnastics classes. I'm
well,
sure you'll be able to find one.
I've been,
And if you do, maybe you'll get to go to the next Gymnaestrada, which is going to be in Portugal. So hopefully
that's
I
absolutely
will get invited to go there too.
Great. So, well, you've inspired us a whole lot. So many people relegate and abdicate their financial stories to people that would not even care whether they stay in business tomorrow or the next day. So, as Liz says, take ownership, take full control of that part of your journey, because hey, one day you might actually have a good story to tell, and maybe it could be on the Online Prosperity Show. Who knows? Just like what Liz has showcased to us today. Thank you once again. And for those that are watching right now, if you found this episode as insightful as I did, don't forget to rewatch this time taking notes, because obviously we just went through quite a lot. Yes, it might seem like it's things that are obvious, but so many of the fundamentals of how to do and have a business that's profitable and enjoyable have been shared in this episode. So if you just skipped up to the end beat, I want you to just go back in and rewatch this. And if it's not for you, why don't you share this with a business owner that is struggling to actually stay afloat or be profitable? Maybe the community that Liz is creating could actually be the answer that they're looking for in their business, or they could just jump onto Amazon and pick a copy of the Financial Rebellion and maybe consider reaching out to Liz for the free strategy session that she's been dangling out for us. And as always, subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show for more episodes like this that are designed to help you build a profitable and enjoyable business. Until next time, be rebellious out there with your finances. Bye for now.